Morgan Williams wasn't supposed to be in Section 7B of the International Space Station Beta during the first alien visitation in human history. She was just trying to fix a faulty air recycler, armed with nothing but a wrench and her lucky planetary alignment socks. The fact that she stumbled into humanity's first contact while humming Space Oddity under her breath would later be recorded as one of the most fortunate accidents in galactic history. The crystalline beings had emerged from their shimmering vessel moments earlier, their translucent forms casting rainbow patterns across the station's walls. The entire diplomatic team had assembled in the main reception chamber, leaving Morgan blissfully unaware as she worked on the stubborn machinery in the adjacent section. The first sign that something was different came when her wrench started floating upward instead of down in the artificial gravity. The second was a soft buzzing sound, like 1,000 bees having a gentle argument. Morgan turned around and found herself face to face with what looked like a floating ball of purple lightning. "Well, aren't you the prettiest thing?" Morgan said, completely forgetting protocol, training, and basic self-preservation instincts. The creature, which the aliens later identified as a stellar navigation entity, or SNE, crackled with energy as it hovered closer. Through the observation window, the crystalline ambassadors watched in horror as Morgan did the unthinkable. She reached out to the SNE. "You look like my aunt's cat when it's all puffed up during a thunderstorm," she cooed, her hand moving slowly toward the being's crackling form. The lead ambassador, whose name roughly translated to Facet of Eternal Wisdom, began transmitting urgent warning signals. Their SNAs were notorious for discharging devastating amounts of energy when touched. 3 of their finest pilots had been reduced to ash attempting to handle them directly. But something extraordinary happened. As Morgan's fingers made contact with the electrical field, the purple energy condensed and swirled around her hand. The buzzing shifted to a sound remarkably similar to purring. "You just wanted some attention, didn't you?" Morgan scratched what she assumed was the creature's chin area. The SNE's color shifted to a warm pink, and it nuzzled against her palm like an affectionate thundercloud. The crystalline being's internal lights flickered rapidly in their equivalent of shock gasps. Their instruments detected no energy discharge, no radiation spike, just a steady decrease in the SNE's usual aggressive energy pattern. "Is this little spark plug yours?" Morgan asked, finally noticing the aliens watching her through the window. She waved cheerfully, still scratching the now dozing energy being. "Sorry if I'm not supposed to be here. I was just fixing the recycler, but this cutie seemed like they needed a friend." Through their hastily calibrated universal translators, the aliens managed to ask how she had tamed their most dangerous navigation entity. Morgan just shrugged. "I didn't tame anything. Sometimes folks just need a gentle touch and a kind word, you know. Doesn't matter if they're human, animal, or apparently living lightning." The SNE, now thoroughly relaxed, had started performing lazy loops around Morgan's head, occasionally brushing against her like an affectionate cat marking its territory. Small sparks of static made her hair stand on end, but she just laughed. "Heck, would they like some of my sandwich? I've got tuna." Morgan reached for her lunch bag, but the diplomatic team, who had finally caught up with their visitors, burst into the section before she could offer the electrical entity seafood. As chaos erupted around her, scientists taking readings, diplomats establishing first contact protocols, security teams securing an area that clearly needed no securing, Morgan just kept petting her new friend. The SNE remained curled around her shoulders, emanating contentment in soft pulses of rose-colored light. That day marked the beginning of humanity's reputation across the galaxy. Not as warriors, not as scholars, but as the species that could, would, and absolutely would continue to pet anything they encountered in space. The universe would never be the same. 3 weeks after the Purple Lightning incident, as everyone called it, Morgan found herself aboard the crystalline being ship, heading to what her translator called the Grand Assembly of Unified Species. Her SNE friend, whom she'd named Sparky, insisted on coming along as her personal navigator. "You really didn't have to dress up for me," Morgan told Sparky, who had figured out how to arrange their electrical field into something resembling a bow tie. The being crackled happily, sending small sparks dancing through the air. The crystalline ship's interior sparkled like a diamond cave, making Morgan glad she'd worn sunglasses. Her escort, now calling themselves Facet of Eternal Patience after spending time with humans, guided her toward the bridge. "The Council is most eager to witness your abilities," they chimed, their crystalline form reflecting rainbow patterns. "Though perhaps try not to pet the Sentinel Prime immediately." Morgan adjusted her standard-issue spacesuit, which now sported several scorch marks from Sparky's enthusiastic greetings. "What's a Sentinel Prime?" Her question was answered when they arrived at the Council station. The massive space structure looked like a giant silver snowflake, with crystalline spires stretching in every direction. But what caught Morgan's attention was the enormous shadowy figure floating beside it. "That," Facet chimed nervously, "is the Sentinel Prime, the Council's ultimate guardian. It exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously and has never shown any sign of emotional response." Morgan squinted at the shifting mass of shadows and starlight. "It looks lonely." "It cannot be lonely. It is a cosmic force given form through ancient." Facet stopped mid-chime as Morgan was already heading toward the nearest airlock. "Oh dear." The Council chamber erupted in chaos as Morgan's suit jets carried her toward the Sentinel Prime. Representatives from 50 species watched in horror through the station's transparent walls. Several emergency containment protocols initiated and were promptly ignored. "Hi there, big guy," Morgan called out, though she wasn't sure if sound would carry to a multi-dimensional being. The Sentinel Prime turned what might have been its attention toward her, its form rippling like the surface of a dark ocean. Morgan held out her hand, palm up, just like she'd done with countless nervous dogs back on Earth. "It's okay. I just want to be friends." The being that had destroyed entire pirate fleets with a thought slowly extended what could have been a tendril of shadow stuff. It gently touched Morgan's palm, and for a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then the impossible happened. The Sentinel Prime leaned into her touch and began emanating a deep, resonant hum that felt like a purr in the fabric of spacetime itself. "See? Everyone needs a little kindness," Morgan said, scratching what she hoped was the right spot. The being's shadowy form rippled with contentment, and several nearby stars seemed to twinkle in rhythm with its happiness. Inside the Council chamber, pandemonium reigned. The quantum archives had to be updated as the definition of impossible had just changed. Several species began drafting research proposals, while others started religious movements on the spot. When Morgan finally returned to the chamber, she found herself surrounded by eager representatives. The Sentinel Prime, refusing to be left outside, had somehow squeezed its massive form through the station's walls without breaking them, and now loomed protectively over her, like a very large, very cosmic puppy. "How does your species accomplish these feats?" A gaseous being burbled through their translator. Morgan shrugged, still petting the multidimensional guardian with one hand while Sparky nestled in her hair. "We just treat everyone like they might need a friend. Being scary-looking doesn't mean you don't want belly rubs." As if to prove her point, the Sentinel Prime rolled over in 4 dimensions at once, earning gasps from the assembled council. Morgan just smiled and obliged the cosmic entity's request for belly rubs, while somewhere in the background, humanity's reputation grew even more fascinating to their galactic neighbors. Taylor Rodriguez had spent 15 years rehabilitating wildlife on Earth, but this was the first time they'd been asked to rehabilitate what looked like living crystal origami. The creatures, called prismatic defenders, stood taller than humans when folded out and normally served as the crystalline empire's frontline protection. "They just stopped responding to commands 2 cycles ago," Facet explained, leading Taylor and Morgan through the shimmering halls of their military base. "Nothing we've tried has worked." Morgan watched as Sparky zipped around her head, still sporting their bow tie made of electricity. The Sentinel Prime had reluctantly stayed behind at the council station, though it had given Morgan what felt like a sad puppy look across 6 dimensions when she left. "Have you tried playing with them?" Taylor asked, pulling a colorful rubber ball from their pocket. The crystalline beings' faces flickered in confusion. Play. With military units. The base commander's voice chimed with disbelief. Taylor tossed the ball gently down the hallway. It bounced past an enclosure where several prismatic defenders hunched in their compact forms, looking distinctly unhappy for creatures made of living crystal. One of them slowly unfolded, geometric patterns flashing as it tracked the ball's movement. The commander moved to stop it, but Morgan held up a hand. Wait. Watch. The defender extended a crystalline limb and carefully caught the ball on its second bounce. It turned the object over, prisms within its form creating tiny rainbows on the walls. They're not broken, Taylor said softly. They're bored and lonely. How long do they spend just waiting for something to defend against? The commander's lights flickered rapidly. They are warriors, not pets. Everything needs enrichment, Taylor explained, pulling out more toys from their seemingly bottomless pockets. Mental stimulation, social interaction. Even my neighbor's grumpiest cat needs playtime. Morgan approached the defender, still holding the ball. May I? She asked, holding out her hand. The crystalline being hesitated, then carefully placed the ball in her palm. Morgan smiled and gently tossed it back. What followed was the first game of catch ever played between a human and a living crystal warrior. Other defenders began unfolding, their internal lights brightening with interest. Taylor started setting up what they called an enrichment course. Obstacles, puzzles, and toys designed to challenge both body and mind. Think of it as training, but fun. They'll be even better at their jobs if they're happy. The base commander watched in amazement as their elite defense force began playing like newly formed crystals. One defender had figured out how to turn itself into a slide for the others. Two more were competing to see who could create the most complex rainbow patterns on the wall. But what about discipline? Order? The commander chimed anxiously. As if in answer, an alarm blared. A training drone had activated, targeting the base as part of a routine drill. Before anyone could react, the defenders smoothly transformed from their playful states into battle formation. But this time, they moved with an energy and coordination the commander had never seen before. The drone was disabled in seconds through a dazzling display of synchronized crystal warfare. Then, immediately after, the defenders returned to their games, one of them actually bringing the disabled drone back to Taylor like a proud pet retrieving a stick. See? Taylor said, patting the defender's smooth surface. Happy warriors are better warriors. They just needed someone to care about them, as beings, not just weapons. News of the Gentle Touch Revolution spread quickly through the Empire. Soon, Taylor found themselves conducting workshops for crystal beings from all three star systems under crystalline control. They taught the basics: play therapy, positive reinforcement, and the importance of daily enrichment. Morgan watched with pride as Taylor transformed the entire concept of crystal warfare into something more like crystal partnership. Sparky buzzed happily around the playroom they'd set up, occasionally joining in games with defenders who'd learned to catch their electrical discharges like tennis balls. You know, Morgan said to Facet as they watched a defender learning to solve a puzzle box, I think the galaxy was just waiting for someone to make the first move. Sometimes all it takes is showing a little kindness first. Facet's form sparkled thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why your species can befriend anything. You see the need for joy in all things. In the background, Taylor was teaching a group of defenders to play hopscotch, their crystalline forms twinkling with delight as they learned the rules. The universe, it seemed, was becoming a friendlier place one game at a time. Rebecca Chen stood in front of the Galactic Science Academy's observation chamber, hands on her hips, staring at what appeared to be a wolf made entirely of shifting plasma. The creature snarled, its form flickering between states of matter like a deadly light show. This is your most dangerous specimen, she asked, unwrapping a protein bar. The assembled alien scientists bobbed and floated in their various forms, their instruments whirring frantically. Subject P-147 has destroyed 3 containment fields and injured 12 handlers. The lead researcher, a being made of floating geometric shapes, explained. It exists in a constant state of plasma flux. Physical contact is impossible. Rebecca took a bite of her protein bar. Has anyone tried giving him a treat? The scientific council erupted in a chaos of beeps, chirps, and mathematical equations. Morgan, watching from the observation deck with Sparky, tried not to laugh. The council had insisted on these tests, hoping to understand humanity's gift. They'd called in Rebecca, Earth's top canine trainer, as their final subject. Impossible. A cloud of sentient gas hissed through its translator. The being cannot be bribed with sustenance. It exists beyond normal physical. The plasma wolf stopped snarling. Its ears, made of solar fire, perked up as Rebecca broke off a piece of her protein bar. Who's a good interdimensional pupper? Are you a good boy? Or girl? Or non-binary particle cluster? Rebecca's voice took on that special tone pet owners across Earth would recognize instantly. The wolf's plasma tail began to wag, disturbing the local magnetic field. Morgan watched the scientist's various appendages and measuring devices flutter in disbelief as Rebecca slowly approached the supposedly unapproachable creature. One floating geometric shape actually fell out of formation. The key is confidence, Rebecca explained, holding out the protein bar piece. They can sense fear or uncertainty. You have to project calm energy. The plasma wolf delicately took the treat with its mouth of stellar fire, somehow not vaporizing it instantly. But our readings indicate, the lead researcher began. Look at that face. Look at those eyes made of literal stars. Who's the sweetest plasma puppy in the whole galaxy? Rebecca was now scratching behind the wolf's plasma ears, her special heat-resistant gloves glowing slightly from the contact. The wolf flopped onto its back, plasma tail wagging so hard it was causing small electromagnetic disturbances. The scientists' instruments were going haywire, recording what they insisted was impossible data. Would you like to try something more challenging? The gaseous researcher asked, still processing the scene before them. Rebecca looked up from giving belly rubs to the plasma wolf, who had turned a soft pink color that Rebecca insisted meant it was happy. Bring it on. They brought in their quantum uncertainty cats, beings that existed in multiple states simultaneously until observed. Rebecca had them playing with a laser pointer within minutes, their quantum states resolving into whatever position let them best chase the red dot. Next came the four-dimensional hamsters that could only be perceived through advanced mathematics. Rebecca taught them to roll over in geometrically impossible ways for small pieces of space algae. By the end of the day, the Academy's most secure containment level had been transformed into what looked like an interdimensional petting zoo. The plasma wolf played fetch with the quantum cats, while the mathematical hamsters did tricks for treats. Rebecca sat in the middle of it all, a being made of living shadows curled up asleep in her lap. I still don't understand, the lead researcher admitted to Morgan. Our most sophisticated analysis cannot explain how she does this. Morgan watched as Sparky joined the play session, their electrical form zipping around in a game of tag with the plasma wolf. Maybe that's your problem. You're trying to analyze friendship. Rebecca stood up carefully, trying not to disturb the shadow creature napping on her. Same time tomorrow. I think the quantum cats need work on their sit-stay and someone. She looked meaningfully at the plasma wolf, who tried to look innocent despite being made of star stuff, needs to learn not to chase the mathematical hamsters. The Academy's observation logs that day contained more question marks than actual data, but they couldn't deny the results. Every single impossible-to-handle creature had turned into what the humans insisted on calling a good boy/girl/being. The galaxy's definition of possible would need serious revision. The emergency alert came through while Morgan was teaching Sparky how to play fetch with a ball of concentrated starlight. Research Station Omega, home to the galaxy's largest collection of space creatures, had gone silent. Even worse, all containment protocols had failed. Let me get this straight, Morgan said, looking at the station's schematics floating in holographic form. Every single habitat barrier is down, and all the creatures are loose inside. The council representatives nodded nervously. Rebecca had already started packing her bag of treats, while Taylor reviewed the station's enrichment protocols on a tablet. "And you want us to go in, and what exactly?" Morgan asked, though she already knew the answer. Sparky buzzed anxiously around her head, their electrical bow tie flickering with concern. "Restore order," the crystalline counselor chimed, "before they destroy each other or the station." The human team arrived at Station Omega aboard an emergency transport. Through the viewports, the station looked intact, though occasional flashes of strange light pulsed from within. Morgan's old friend, the Sentinel Prime, had insisted on coming along and now floated nearby in all its multidimensional glory. "Remember," Rebecca said as they prepared to board, "no matter what we find in there, they're all just scared and confused." She adjusted her treat pouch, now modified to handle everything from plasma snacks to quantum kibble. The station's main airlock opened with a hiss, revealing darkened corridors, occasionally lit by streaks of energy and floating orbs of light. A shadow darted across their path, one of the mathematical entities, its equations trailing behind it like a comet's tail. "Here, sweetie," Taylor called softly, pulling out one of their special toys. The entity paused, advanced calculus swirling around it curiously. Within moments, it was happily playing with a puzzle ball designed for fourth-dimensional problem-solving. They moved deeper into the station, encountering more creatures. A pack of plasma wolves had cornered a group of quantum uncertainty cats in the cafeteria. Rebecca handled that one, somehow getting them to not only stop fighting, but to start playing an impromptu game of cosmic tag. "Something's not right," Morgan said, watching the creature's behavior. "They're not attacking each other. They're organizing." A crystalline defender, apparently brought for research, unfolded itself from a corner and approached them. Its patterns flashed in recognition of Taylor, who had trained its cousins. The defender gestured for them to follow. In the station's central control room, they found their answer. The main artificial intelligence core pulsed with strange energy patterns. Dozens of creatures surrounded it, trying to communicate. The station's AI, Morgan realized, reaching out to touch the console. It's scared. When the power fluctuated, it lost its normal communication protocols. The creatures were trying to help it. Sparky zipped forward, their electrical form interfacing with the AI's systems. The Sentinel Prime extended a tendril of shadow stuff through several dimensions, making contact as well. Morgan placed her hand on the console, doing what humans did best, offering comfort to something confused and afraid. The AI's patterns steadied. Lights flickered back on throughout the station. On the monitors, they could see creatures returning to their habitats voluntarily, though many seemed to be arranging plague routes first. "Well," Rebecca said, watching a plasma wolf escort some mathematical hamsters home, "looks like we don't need to restore order after all. They figured it out themselves. They just needed someone to understand what was really happening." Taylor was already taking notes on their tablet. "We should set up regular interaction periods between different species. They're clearly capable of positive social behaviors across dimensional barriers." The council representatives arrived to find not a disaster, but a revolution in interspecies cooperation. The station had transformed from a research facility into something new. The galaxy's first self-organizing sanctuary where creatures of all types could learn from each other. "I still don't understand," one counselor admitted to Morgan. "How did you know it would work out?" Morgan smiled, watching Sparky play an impossible game of three-dimensional tag with a quantum cat. "Sometimes the best way to handle a crisis is to realize it was never really a crisis at all, just a bunch of beings needing to be understood." The Sentinel Prime rumbled in agreement, its massive form somehow managing to look cozy as it watched over them, all like a cosmic guardian. The ancient ruins floated in space like shattered pieces of a crystal palace. Morgan stood at the viewport of their exploration vessel, with Sparky humming thoughtfully beside her. The Sentinel Prime maintained a protective watch over their ship, its massive form blocking out distant stars. "These readings are unlike anything we've seen," Taylor said, studying their instruments. "The energy signatures suggest some kind of biological preservation system is still active." Rebecca looked up from where she was preparing treats for their now considerable menagerie of space pets. The plasma wolf, whom she named Nova, padded through the air beside her, its fiery form casting warm light across the bridge. Active after 50,000 years, Morgan asked. A crystalline defender, one of their graduates from the military base who'd insisted on joining the expedition, flashed its patterns in confirmation. More interesting, Taylor added, there are signs of creature habitats everywhere. These weren't just ruins. This was some kind of sanctuary. Their ship docked with the main structure, guided by Sparky's careful navigation. The entry chamber sparkled with dormant crystals, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns. Look at these markings, Morgan said, running her hand along a wall. The crystals lit up at her touch, responding to her body's electrical field. They're not just decorative. They're instructions. Nova the plasma wolf suddenly perked up, its ears made of solar fire twitching. A soft humming filled the chamber as more crystals activated, responding to the various energy fields of their unusual crew. It's some kind of automatic system, Taylor realized. But what's it responding to? Their answer came in the form of a holographic display, showing beings that looked almost like living aurora borealis. The recording flickered as an aurora being reached out to touch what appeared to be a creature made of pure gravity. They were like us, Morgan whispered. They could interact with any form of life. The hologram shifted, showing more scenes. Aurora beings playing with quantum entities, teaching crystalline life forms, even communicating with beings that seemed to exist partly in other dimensions. Rebecca had gone very quiet, watching the ancient recordings. They built this place to preserve knowledge. But why did they leave? The next chamber answered her question. It was filled with preservation pods, most long dormant, but some still humming with faint power. And everywhere, there were feeding and care instructions, enrichment protocols, and habitat specifications. They knew they had to leave, Taylor said softly, reading the translated text floating above one pod. But they couldn't bear to abandon the creatures in their care, so they left everything needed to maintain them. Morgan touched another crystal panel, and a new message appeared. To those who can touch the untouchable, beware the void that consumes connection. Only those who understand all forms of life can face what comes. Until then, we leave our knowledge and our friends in your care. The void that consumes connection? Rebecca asked, scratching Nova behind its plasma ears. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, they heard a sound from deeper in the ruins, something between a purr and a song. Following it, they found a chamber filled with strange machinery that hummed in harmony with their approach. It's some kind of beacon, Taylor said, checking their instruments. It's been running all this time, waiting for someone who could activate these ruins properly. The crystalline defender flashed a warning pattern. More systems were coming online throughout the structure, responding to their presence. The Sentinel Prime, watching through multiple dimensions, shifted uneasily. Look at this, Morgan called. She found what looked like a star map, but the stars shown weren't arranged in any current pattern. It's showing future stellar movements. Something's coming. As if in response to her words, the ruins hummed louder. Sparky buzzed excitedly around a series of crystals, which lit up to show a countdown in ancient numerals. Whatever the Aurora people were waiting for, Rebecca said, watching Nova pace anxiously, I think we're about to find out. The countdown continued its silent march forward, while around them, the ancient sanctuary stirred with forgotten purpose. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, something was moving, and humanity's gift for universal friendship was about to face its greatest test. The void between stars rippled like dark water. Morgan watched from the Council Station's observation deck as reports came in from across the galaxy. Whole systems had gone silent, their quantum communications networks simply stopping, as if all connections had been severed at once. It's not attacking, Morgan said, watching the sensor feeds. It's isolating, separating everyone and everything. Beside her, Sparky crackled with nervous energy, their usual cheerful bow tie pattern looking distinctly worried. Rebecca burst into the room, Nova the plasma wolf at her heels. The quantum uncertainty cats are acting strange. They're all resolving into the same state simultaneously. They're pointing toward the void. Taylor arrived next, accompanied by their crystalline defender and a small group of mathematical hamsters. The ruins warning makes sense now. This thing doesn't just consume physical connections, it breaks down the bonds between beings. The Sentinel Prime phased through the station walls, its massive form rippling with unusual patterns. Through their now practiced connection, Morgan felt its concern. The entity had sensed something vast and empty approaching, something that existed in opposition to all the connections they'd built. The Council's weapons platforms aren't even scratching it. A crystalline representative chimed urgently. Our strongest quantum torpedoes passed right through. Morgan watched as another star system went dark on the display. Then she noticed something odd about the pattern of the spreading void. It's not random, she realized. It's avoiding certain areas. Taylor quickly pulled up a map overlay. The sanctuary stations, the research outposts, anywhere we've established interspecies connections, it's going around them. That's it. Morgan turned to the assembled council members. You can't fight this thing with weapons. It feeds on isolation. We need to do the opposite. Rebecca caught on first. We need to connect everyone. Everything. All at once. The next few hours were a blur of activity. The council sent messages across the galaxy, while Morgan and her team put together what Taylor called the biggest play date in universal history. Every sanctuary and research station opened its doors. The crystalline defenders formed living bridges between ships and stations. Quantum uncertainty cats resolved themselves into chains of probability linking distant points. Mathematical hamsters calculated impossible spaces where different species could gather safely. The Sentinel Prime extended its consciousness across multiple dimensions, creating safe passages through space. Plasma wolves like Nova formed a network of living stars, their energy helping power the massive effort. Morgan stood at the heart of it all, in the council station's main hall. Around her gathered beings of every possible type: physical, energy, mathematical, quantum, and some that defy classification. Sparky buzzed encouraging patterns to a group of nervous young energy beings. Whatever this thing is, Morgan addressed the gathered species. It breaks connections, so we're going to give it more connection than it can handle. The void reached the edge of their network. On the displays, they could see it pause, like a wave hitting an invisible shore. Then it pressed forward. Morgan felt it first, a sensation of endless emptiness, of being completely alone despite the crowd. Around her, beings began to drift apart, their natural instinct to isolate taking over. Then Rebecca started singing. It was an old Earth lullaby, the kind used to comfort scared pets. Nova joined in with a harmonic plasma pulse. The mathematical hamsters added a quantum rhythm. Soon, the entire station was humming, buzzing, chiming, and singing in impossible harmony. Morgan reached out and took the nearest hands, appendages, and energy fields she could find. Others followed her lead. The crystalline defenders linked their facets together. The quantum cats entangled themselves permanently with each other. Even the station's AI joined in, its electronic consciousness merging with the shared song. The void pressed harder, trying to break their connections, but in response, the links only grew stronger. The Sentinel Prime expanded its protective field, turned solid by the power of millions of beings choosing to stay connected. Through their joined awareness, Morgan felt the void's confusion. It had never encountered anything like this, beings choosing to maintain their bonds despite its power. For the first time in its existence, the void met something it couldn't break. And in that moment, as the galaxies sang together in defiance of emptiness, Morgan realized that humanity's gift wasn't just the ability to pet anything. It was the ability to show others that connection was a choice worth making, again and again, no matter what tried to break it apart. 6 months after the void encountered the united species of the galaxy, Morgan stood in her new office aboard the Intergalactic Wildlife Sanctuary, watching Sparky play tag with what used to be the emptiness between stars. The void, as it turned out, wasn't malicious, just profoundly lonely after eons of isolation. Who knew it just needed a friend? Morgan mused as the transformed void entity playfully chased Sparky through a series of quantum loops. Its dark surface now rippled with faint colors, like an oil slick catching light. Rebecca poked her head in, Nova the plasma wolf still faithfully at her side. You won't believe what the void taught the quantum cats today. They're all choosing to exist in multiple states at once just to play with it. Some kind of cosmic hide and seek. The sanctuary had started as a simple space station, but had grown into something unprecedented. Every habitat was designed to allow interaction between species that most of the galaxy had once thought impossible to mix. Taylor walked past, leading a tour group of crystalline beings. Their defender friend, now appointed as chief of security, flashed happy patterns as they passed Morgan's office. Behind them trotted a group of mathematical hamsters, their equations forming playful patterns in the air. And here we have our latest addition, Taylor was saying, a gravity garden where light-based beings can safely interact with dark matter entities. The void helped us design it. Morgan smiled, remembering how quickly the void had transformed once it experienced its first connection. Like a flower blooming in fast motion, it had unfolded into something beautiful, an entity capable of helping others bridge their own gaps of understanding. The Sentinel Prime, who had become something of a permanent resident, phased through the wall. It had developed a habit of checking on everyone throughout the day, like a multidimensional security guard who just wanted to make sure all its friends were happy. Message from the Council, it communicated in its unique way. They want to know if we can host the first Galactic Friendship Festival here next month. A festival? Morgan laughed. Why not? We'll need to order more treats, though. She looked at Rebecca, who was already making notes on her tablet. Way ahead of you, Rebecca said. I've got plasma snacks, quantum kibble, and those special mathematical berries the hamsters love. Plus, the void entity apparently wants to try being a bounce house for the smaller species. Through the viewport, Morgan could see the ancient ruins they'd discovered, now carefully relocated and restored near the sanctuary. They'd kept the warning message about the void as a reminder, but added their own addition. Connection is always possible, if you're willing to try. The sanctuary's AI chimed in through the speakers, its voice warm with affection. Incoming transport from Earth. More human volunteers for the interspecies communication program. Morgan nodded. After the Void incident, humans have become highly sought after throughout the galaxy. Not for their technology or their strength, but for their seemingly infinite capacity to forge bonds with any form of life they encountered. You know, Taylor said, returning from their tour, the Aurora beings would be proud. We're not just preserving connections, we're creating new ones every day. As if to prove their point, a group of newly arrived species from the galaxy's outer rim floated past the office. They looked like living nebulae, trailing stardust in their wake. The void entity immediately stopped its game with Sparky and approached them, its surface shifting into gentle patterns of welcome. Within minutes, the nebula beings were teaching the void new ways to shape its darkness, while the void showed them how to create pocket spaces perfect for quantum cat naps. Nova watched with interest, occasionally contributing plasma-based special effects to their impromptu light show. Morgan, the sanctuary's AI, called. The Council sent one more message. They're officially designating humans as universal translators of friendship in all galactic records. Morgan watched as Sparky, wearing their signature bow tie, demonstrated their favorite game of fetch to the nebula beings. The void had transformed itself into the perfect ball, bouncing between players with obvious joy. Universal translators of friendship, she repeated, smiling. I think we can live with that. Around them, the sanctuary hummed with the sound of countless species learning, playing, and growing together. Somewhere in the distance, a mathematical hamster solved an impossible equation just to make its crystalline friend laugh. The galaxy, it seemed, would never be the same. And that was exactly how everyone wanted it.